Hi, everyone. I'm Natalia Crawford, and I'm the founder and editor-in-chief of She Leads Daily. And I'm super excited to be doing a video interview. So we've been on a series of She interviews just featuring different Christian women that we admire, look up to, and are living out their purpose. And I'm super excited to have Kelsey Chapman with us today, who is going to just be sharing a little bit with us about her story and herself and her life and her purpose. So I'm super excited to have her with us today. Hi, Kelsey. Welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
I'm so glad that you're here. So I'm just going to ask you a few questions just have our audience get to know you a little bit more. And I know that they're just going to get so much wisdom and goodness from our conversation today. Sound good?
Oh yeah, I'm so excited and honored to be here.
Perfect. So do you maybe want to start off by just telling us a little bit about yourself?
Totally, yeah. So I'm Kelsey. I got in the kind of online publication world with my own blog a few years back. So about 2 years ago, 2 years back from February, I started a personal blog. I had just come home from a missions program in Mozambique and really came home inspired to be creative. I had gone there. I totally went expecting to be ready to become a missionary overseas. And it was actually there that God met me and was like, I have that for you, but I have also given you a lot of other gifts and talents that you're kind of suppressing. And so I really made peace with that. I came home really fired up to start, using a lot of my creative skills and just diving in. So I started a blog with a friend and we really just, made it a space where it was everything we loved. We loved traveling, we loved fashion, we loved women coming alongside other women and empowering one another. So we had kind of a guest hosting space every Monday and Friday, and we just went at it. We just utilized the space on the internet for everything we love and kind of a place where we could write and share our hearts. And after about a year of that, I was moving across the country. She's wanting to slow down, and we kind of made a decision to kind of go our separate ways with the blogging world. And I kept the blog and ended up changing it over to my personal blog because it was quite a bit to coordinate guest posts that were a different person every week. And so after a few months of laying low, I'd made a move across the country at the same time. So I really had on my heart to create a space where women could empower women, but more on a permanent basis. So instead of like a different guest poster every week, I was like, maybe we'd have a permanent columnist per topic. And that way I can kind of build a real relationship with them. They're not just delivering a wham bam piece of content, and they have a space where people can kind of expect Meredith to write about marriage every month or twice a month. And so, I'd always loved magazines growing up. And, I loved magazines like Relevant, but I also loved magazines like Glamour. And so I wanted it to be a space that kind of married the two and really wove in faith to like everyday womanhood. And I just started thinking of the writers that I'd written alongside and kind of collaborated with for, my year of writing at that point. And I'd had a blog in college, so it wasn't my like first year of writing, but my first kind of real year of writing. And I started, praying into it and asking, different girls to come alongside me and maybe contribute 2 pieces of content a month. And that's kind of how Radiant came to life. I started concepting it in March and we had it launched by May. And it's been, around for, we'll hit our birthday coming up in May. And it's really exciting to see how it's grown and blossomed in the last year.
That's awesome. I love hearing all about that. And kind of how we shared when we spoke previously, we have very similar passions, and I love that we can connect in those areas and the things that we're passionate about, just reaching women through the online space. And I love what you do through Radiant. So I'm really grateful for women like you who are on the online space making a difference for God and reaching women with his love. So thank you for everything you do.
Thank you. It's so fun to meet, friends in this industry and really be able to build a friendship and cheer each other on. Even if we're doing something similar, that's more people being influenced and impacted and knowing and encountering Jesus in a way they might not have done so before. So
yeah,
I think it's great.
Yes, I agree. I guess my next question for you is how, or what do you believe your purpose is, and how are you living that out right now?
I definitely, bottom line, it's to equip and encourage and empower women. So we weave that purpose through everything we do in Radiant, and then everything we do in everything I do in my personal business. And so I love coming alongside women and dreaming with them and walking with them into fullness and joy and life. Because, Jesus came to give us life abundantly. And, I don't know if anyone here is familiar with the Enneagram, but I'm a 7, and that's the enthusiast. So, the word abundant means a lot to me, and I want to walk with women into abundance and fullness and joy. And so if at Radiant, the articles or the city meetups or the free workbook or, down the road conferences and retreats, if that can usher women into freedom and abundance and fullness and joy, mission complete. And if in my, personal kind of consulting business and Instagram management stuff, if I can help women get their business off the ground and bring their dreams to life, mission accomplished.
I love that. That's beautiful. And so how do you, because I think we're also similar in the sense that we're like multi-passionate, or we have different gifts. And I think that's the case for a lot of women. They see these different gifts that they have and desires. And I think you and I have managed to look at our gifts and desires and kind of go after them, and say, okay, you have Radiant, you have what you do with Instagram and consulting over here. But, if there's a woman who has these different desires and gifts, and she's like, they seem scattered, or, like they don't make sense. Do you have any advice for women on what to do if you have these different dreams and desires and you don't really know how they'll come together, or how you'll see what that bigger picture looks like? Do you have any advice on that?
Oh yes, because I am that girl. I still have things I want to do that aren't being done quite yet. So I definitely say timing is everything. I am a more everything type of girl, and too much of a good thing is not always a good thing. So, timing and being in tune, I really, sometimes God starts talking to me about something really quietly for like a 6-month stretch before I actually do it. And when it's been constant, I know okay, I think that's on the horizon for right now. But if it's not, if I don't feel it keep coming up in my spirit and my heart, I'm okay, that's a really good idea. And I want to do that, but maybe I need to put that on the shelf for a while. For instance, I want to write a book, and that's been a dream since I've been a little girl. I've always written. But the reality is right now I live in kind of an admin mode of getting stuff done with Radiant and getting stuff done with my personal business, that I don't have time to write a book. And I love writing, and it's one of my top 5 dreams to write a book, but the timing is not there right now. And I fully trust that God will bring a space and a time in my life where I have the time to write a book proposal and pitch it. But, I think there's an element of taking step by step and just doing what God puts right in front of you. And if you have some other dreams and the desires that aren't happening, praying into either how you can weave that into what you're doing, or putting it on the shelf for a while. And if you feel, you'll know, if you pray into it, you'll have a gut feeling, and that is Holy Spirit giving you insight into that's a right now thing or that's a later thing. And so I have lots of those every day. I'm a person with an idea a day. And so I've seen God take a lot of my passions and weave them all together. And I talk about it coming circle a lot, but that's taken time. I have a super a super strong passion for missions. We're just now concepting how we'll weave that into Radiant. And it might not like fully come to life for years. And kind of making peace with that and being okay with that, because nothing good happens overnight. And often you look at the overnight people and really they were like hidden for 10 years. It just looks like it happened overnight. So, that's what I have to say to that. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you. I think, because I'm the same way. I'm like, I have an idea and I'm like, let's do it now. And a lot of times I have to pray about it and just see like, what is God saying? What is he asking me to focus on right now? And it doesn't mean that this isn't going to happen. It might just not be the right time for it to happen. So like you said, God's timing is absolutely crucial in all of that. Yeah. And he does weave everything together so perfectly.
He really does. And like one of my favorite pieces of scripture is your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. And if you think of a lamp, like it doesn't illuminate like 5 miles ahead of you. It illuminates the next step. And so just being in tune with what the next step is, God knows the desires of your heart. And often he'll take you step by step by step right into your destiny. So it's not something we have to overthink so much. If we just lean in and take step by step by step with him, it really does work out.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like he does that so perfectly. I know for me personally, like, when I was a little girl, I had a dream of being a magazine editor. And then I also wanted to be a journalist and I wanted to be a movie director. And like, I wanted to do all these things that didn't really make sense. Like, I was like, how is God going to take all these desires and put them into one? And somehow he like managed to do that with She Leads Daily. Like I get to do all of those things that I was passionate about in one community. And I'm like, only God would be able to do that. Because in my mind, they were like scattered everywhere. And he was like, oh, here, let me show you how they perfectly fit together.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, he's so good. And so, so I want to talk to you about going new places, because you've traveled a lot, with doing like the missions. And then I know you mentioned like you recently moved. So, what is that like? And like, how has your faith played a role in that? And how would that play a role in another woman's life of being willing to move to places where God is asking you to go? Like what does that look like in your life?
Yeah. So, when about 2.5 years ago, God started speaking to my husband and I about moving across the country to serve, our friends who lead and pastor a church. And that was scary for me. It was really exciting, to be honest, because I've always wanted to travel. But I think reality sunk in when I was here and not going home. And that's when it became scary of like, oh, I don't know the time frame on this. When it was just a concept in like the early stages of moving, pure excitement, no fear. But once I was here and like, oh, I don't know how long I'm here for, it became scary because I, thought I was the girl who got away from my small town. And then I leave my small town and I'm like, and really it's a suburb of Nashville. So it's like, I had Nashville right there. But I, had only traveled in like 3-month stretches. So I'd lived in like a village in Peru for a summer. And then I'd lived in Pemba, Mozambique for a summer and studied abroad. And that has always been easy and an adventure and exciting for me, but never somewhere I was building permanent roots. And that was a game changer for me when I moved here. I still struggle some days. It's been hard. Like we know that it was like an assignment from God to move across the country, but that doesn't make it easier when you miss your mom or your best friends or, like having 4 friends here versus 20 at home. And so, obedience sometimes trumps comfort and what's natural to you. But I will say that in the discomfort, in the weeks at a time that I felt sad or in a funk because I didn't have like the community I had back at home, and we have a really great community here. It's just different. I will say that the fruit of that obedience far trumps the discomfort that has been around at times. Even if I look back at my summer living in a village in Peru, it was one of the loneliest summers of my life. But that obedience of sticking it out did something in my heart. That perseverance really, yielded something in my heart that I don't think would have been there if I would have just given up and gone home.
I love that. And so, okay, so I'm going to ask this a little bit selfishly because, as you know, I just moved across,
Yeah.
not across the country. I moved like straight up and from California to Washington. And this is new for me. It sounds like you've done it a few times, but I'm having those same struggles, of like community, missing my friends, and it's exciting but also like hard.
Yeah.
And so having gone through that, I think a general question that even would apply to, I think, a lot of women is, when you're being obedient to God, like you said, it's not always comfortable. Sometimes it's really, really challenging. So do you have any advice on when being obedient to God is uncomfortable or challenging or difficult? Like, what do you do in those times, or how do you keep yourself from giving up and instead, you chose to stick with it, which I don't think a lot of people do. I think it's easier to just walk away, go back to what we're comfortable with, even if it means backtracking. So, what advice do you have on how to push forward during those times?
I think, like, again, it kind of goes back to taking it like step by step. I mean, I had to tell my husband, like, we can't use language about being here for 10 years. Like, I can't. I need you to use language of 2 years because 10 makes me feel trapped.
Yeah.
And so you taking it in baby steps and being like, you know what, like, God could very much shift and change our assignment in a year. We have no idea. And both of us feel like it's not a forever place for us to be. So for me, digesting it and like just doing what's right in front of me, because it is not an option to run back home right now. We just bought a house. We are here. But at the same time, knowing that, okay, like we can use language around this of like 2 years. 2 years feels doable. I have enough good friends to like handle this. If I didn't have friends, I'd be making friends. You better believe it, because friends really make navigating like the loneliness of being away or being obedient, whether it's moving or being obedient in something else. For me, girlfriends have been crucial for that. I'm definitely a phone talker. I'm calling friends all the time at home as well. But for me, just really surrounding myself with community. It's not as big of a community as back home, but the people that have played a role have made it so much better and made the transition so much easier. But again, I go home and I'm like, I want to be here. I miss my mom. And that's just not an option at the moment. And so I think that, now if I look back at my time in Peru, it was an option for me to book a flight home. But I did have an end goal in sight. And so I was like, I'm going to do this. And it was really hard. We were staying with some missionaries and they didn't even talk to us. So it was just very isolating and lonely. And so, and that gave me a lot of insight into the mission field. People are not always at their best. If you're a missionary in a country for 20 years, there's going to be hard years. So giving the missionaries who didn't talk to me grace in that as well. But, I had an option. I could have booked a flight home and I didn't. And I'm really glad I stuck it out. I think for me, and I know some people, but like, don't feel this way. But for me, there's like a fear of God involved. And like a holy reverence of like, I don't want to miss out on something you want to do in my life, God. And that is more important than me, than my comfort, even though I love comfort. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's hard, but I think I just remind myself, like, if God in scripture tells us that we're overcomers and he promises to comfort us, I'm like, he wouldn't need to do that if life was going to be easy. So yeah. So I always remind myself of that. And so I wanted to kind of backtrack to before Radiant. Do you want to maybe tell us a little bit about what you did before you were self-employed?
Yeah, totally. So I graduated college with a degree in Spanish and global studies. So I'm here to tell you, you don't have to use your college degree. You can learn as you go. I've always ever since I was little though, I've had like little entrepreneurial endeavors. So I've, would have neighborhood car washes and sell handmade business cards to my mom's coworkers. And, was always like creating something and then making a profit. And so That has always been a passion of mine. Design and creativity and words and fashion have always been a passion of mine, and the missions have always been a passion of mine. So I've had these very different worlds that I've been a part of since I was very little, and just very different interests that I'm like, God, how can you weave all those things together? They look so different. I've got to pick one. And that's it. So I kind of went into college and I was like, I'm going to lay down all my frivolous, and interior design is a huge passion of mine as well. And so I went to college and I was kind of like, God, I'm going to lay down all my frivolous passions and serve you. And that's what I'm going to do because, I don't need to give in to being a worldly woman, blah, blah, blah. And so I major in global studies and Spanish, which was fine. I really actually felt peace from the Lord to do that. It was a really fun degree. Or 2 degrees. It was a blast. And I totally thought, I would graduate and be a missionary. And, I've had that place of my heart there for a very long time. And, I graduated, I got my first big girl job, contemplated going on staff with a ministry in town, and then booked paid for my tuition for a mission school on a whim. And so I did it. I went to Pemba, Mozambique for the summer. It was a blast. We had missionaries coming and speaking to us from around the world. So we just got a lot of insight from people doing different kinds of things. And that was really, really cool. And it was there that a lady who has a ministry in the Netherlands, the one-liner that hit me so hard was, God told me it's okay to love beautiful things. And that was like, whoa, this is what I'm here for. And I obviously have this place in my heart that loves missions, but I also have been suppressing this whole creative and business side because I thought, and I would never have given someone else this advice. I was just, I would be like, no, God made you that way. It's okay. Be free. But for me, I was like, no, I've got to do the most holy and noble thing. And that's being a missionary. And when she said that, it's like I had total freedom to actually love what I loved. And so God spoke to me a lot there about being a bridge builder and utilizing those dreams and passions that he'd given me and then building a bridge to the mission world. Because one thing I learned quickly is it takes money to get stuff done. And so, there were days where they were very transparent. The leaders were very transparent with us. And you knew it was pretty rough if they finally told you this. And they were like, if someone doesn't donate tonight, our kids might not eat tomorrow. And they had a couple hundred kids dependent on them. They were adopted and lived on the base with house mothers and house fathers. And it wasn't just an orphanage. It was that's their home. And that's their school and everything that covered their costs and the cost of living. And it wasn't even about keeping the students supported. We were paying for ourselves to be there. It was literally it took money to fund their life. And so that really spoke to me about the importance of kingdom business and kingdom creativity, and then a bridge between that and the mission world. And so I kind of went home with this renewed passion to really tap into the desires I do have, and with a long-term vision of, connecting that to the missions world. So I came home, and that's when I started my own blog and took a job at Starbucks to kind of figure out what I wanted to do. And that was, for me, if you work at Starbucks, don't hear me wrong when I say this, but that was really humbling for me. I thought I was going to go be some top achiever at somewhere corporate, and I'm working at Starbucks with 2 college degrees. And I really wrestled with my identity being in what I'm accomplishing that year. But I actually attribute so much gratitude back to God for that year, because I was off by 11:30 every day. I would work 5 a.m. to noon, and then I'd have all this time to focus on my creative endeavors. And so, you never know what God's doing in a season of your life. I didn't know he was doing that. And so I'm really thankful I worked at Starbucks that year. And so something was awakened in me in that mission school and gave me permission to be oh, God gave me all these gifts and talents and passions for a reason. How can I start weaving them together? And so, ever since then, I didn't go full-time into being self-employed. I, started my blog while working at Starbucks. And then I took a job for one public figure, a Christian public figure. And that was very interesting, and I learned a lot, and how I wanted to run Radiant that way. It was actually hard and disappointing. And then I moved across the country, and I took another job with another Christian public figure, and this time a man. And I would never take back those seasons of working for other people, because it taught me so much about how I want to lead my own team, things I do want to do and things I don't want to do. And things that I didn't understand in the moment. Like, I've had some run-ins with people, and I definitely understand why they did things a certain way now. Mm-hmm. And so that was training ground for me. And that was like the hardest work year of my life. But it was major, major training ground for how I want to run my personal business and how I want to run Radiant. And I would never, ever take it back. So last June, I finally went full-time freelance. I had been like, I had really mastered Instagram for my personal blog and for Radiant in turn, just as a way to grow my, platform. But then I kind of just had people asking me to do it for them. And by May, I was ready to make the leap and go full-time freelance. And I was terrified, so scared. But it's been a cool year of God really taking me step by step, and I'm able to trust him more, after I can look back and see his provision and him taking care of me in the past. So it's been a year of a lot of bravery, but
yes,
it's worth it.
I can completely relate to all of that. And so I guess what I want to talk to you about next is God changing our plans, because, it sounds like you went to college, majored in one thing, had one plan, things changed, and it sounds like things have changed a lot. And same has happened for me. And, and the reason I want to talk about this is because we have a section on our blog that's specifically for women who are currently pursuing an education. And I feel like a lot of the conversations that I have with women in college is they're so overwhelmed with trying to figure out what they're going to major in, because, it's going to mean it's what they're going to do for the rest of their life. And it's such a big decision trying to have it all figured out. And a lot of times for me, I'm like, look, what you major in, like, you're not trying to decide the rest of your life right now, because there's no way for you to know that. So yeah, like, is there anything that you would want to speak to women who are in that season right now, and they're like trying to figure out their whole life with what they major in,
Yeah, totally. A few things. Life is often not as black and white as we make it. Like, God, like, just having open hands with God and being willing to do what he asks you to do next. So if you feel like right now he's asking you to major in PR, or if you feel like a gut feeling that's right, go with it. Mm-hmm. If it changes, trust God that he'll equip you with whatever you need to make that step and that change. He's done it for me. I can speak to his faithfulness and his goodness, that he always provides whatever I need next. And if I'm unequipped or, don't feel like qualified, he usually puts the tools in my tool belt to do that. I think another thing, and this I tell people all the time, whether you're in college or not, but if you're particularly facing like choosing a major in college, mm-hmm. I don't think college teaches you what to think. It teaches you how to think. So I think any major is going to be beneficial for you, because it's just teaching you like critical thinking and how to approach life. Even if you're majoring in coding and IT, you're going to get a job that they're going to teach you specifically what they want for that job. So, you're not going to learn everything there is to know in the world in college. It's just like reframing how you think. And I think that's valuable in itself. And then lastly, I think we approach college the way our parents taught us to approach college, or at least if your parents didn't care about college, at least what culture and authority that's in their age bracket teach about it. Because if you look at it, their generation often did go, they came out, their parents mm-hmm. were products of the Great Depression. So their parents instilled in them security and the need to provide for their family and stability, because they had lived through a time that, didn't have stability or security. So then our parents had that ingrained in them. So if we look at it, like, everything that was ingrained in us was from a generation that valued security and stability. And they often did work a job for 30 years and then retired. And our generation is just not doing that. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's important to like take that framework off of your mindset and just remember that, like, yes, our parents did do a job for 30 years, and there will be people in our generation who do that, but it's not as common, and it's okay to make a change. I've done it, and it's been awesome.
Yeah, I completely agree. And then since you're a woman in business, a Christian woman, you have Radiant, and then you also have your Instagram and consulting business. What would you say are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned as a Christian woman running a business?
Oh man, get a counselor. That's my biggest piece of advice. I love my counselor. She's amazing. She serves kind of as a mentor too. She's not like at a normal office. She's like trained in a different type of counseling. But so, I just go see at her house and we work through mindset struggles for myself right now, or what's next, or how do I navigate this, and I think it's been really valuable for me because, if I look at my last year, guilt is what surfaces a lot for me. Like, am I a present enough wife because I'm so driven in my business? Or something a man would say would be fine for a man to say, but because I said it, I was kind of bossy and offensive. And struggling with navigating those things is really, really hard because, in the Christian world, we love men who are dominant and assertive, but we love women who are helper and meek and sweet. And those are great. Women who have those characteristics and personality traits are amazing, but I'm not that. And so navigating like what people think of me and if they like me, and it's really hard. I care what people think about me, believe it or not. I think we all do. And so sitting in a counseling session and working through that and taking off layers of expectations and what I should be. And, I think that has been really crucial for me because I think we all care about what people think, and it takes courage and bravery to kind of let go of that. And it's like a daily practice for me. So that's what I have to say to that. Get a counselor.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And then lastly, if you had the entirety of Christian women in front of you, what would you say to them? What do you feel is the most important message you would want to communicate to them? And there's no pressure, but just what do you feel is like, from your life, what you've learned, what do you feel like Christian women just really need to hear or know?
Oh, man. Okay. So I'll say this is one of 10 things I'd say because this is what I'm remembering at the moment. So I'm sure I'll walk away and have 20 other things I'd love to tell women. But I think there's a sense of like living loved, and like your purpose on earth is not everything you can do for God. It's literally being in the presence of God. He is fully capable of doing whatever he wants. He is a big boy who can do whatever he wants. And he has every capability. He spoke this world into existence. So not to minimize your purpose in your life work, because I'm someone who, if I don't have purpose or something I'm passionate about in my life, I'm very like sad. But it's a constant reminder of God doesn't love me for everything I can do for him. And until I learn to love myself like he loves me, I'm totally missing the point of life. And so, something we constantly come back to at Radiant is if we are sitting in these insecurities about ourselves and not able to see God the way God sees us, we're going to miss it. And we're never going to be able to carry the message to women that we really want to carry. So it kind of starts with us and doing the self-work there, and really sitting and like stepping back and seeing God, or seeing yourself how God sees you, because he created you to delight in and to be in relationship. And that's your purpose. Your purpose is to be with God. Now, everything else is a bonus. I love purposeful and intentional work. Trust me, like I thrive off that. I need it in my life. But if I'm not able to like be content and be happy without all those things, I'm really missing life. My husband does a really good job of kind of teaching me that, because I'm not content with the mundane and with being. And I think it's the kindness of God to pair me with someone like that, because David is so consistent and stable and steady, and he doesn't live for every mountaintop experience like I do. He's so content with God and the mundane and just being. And that's a huge lesson for me. It's very, very hard for me to just be. So it's something I constantly come back to, but like Your purpose is living loved by God and loving him back. That's it, bottom line. And if you can't do that, then it's time to step back and take a break and focus solely on that first.
I love that. So good.
That's my message today.
I love it. I think it's perfect. It's such a good message to be reminded of, because I think, especially in this world, it's always, like you said, about the next big thing. And I love something you said when we were actually doing the podcast, or I think I read somewhere, I can't remember, somewhere I heard you say that you try, even though like your Instagram is your thing, you try not to live like, where you're always on Instagram, and that's not your life. Like, you want to live real life. And I think I just loved that, because I think we feel this pressure to always live for the next big thing, or our accomplishments, or base our identity around our career, who we are. And it's not found in those things. It's in who God says we are. And I think that was just perfect. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. Hey, I'm learning it the hard way.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm the same way. Well, thank you so much for being here today, and for just sharing your heart and your wisdom. And, I really appreciate you. I know that we're just getting to know each other, but I just appreciate you for who you are and everything that you're doing to impact other women. And I'm just really grateful that you made the time today to.
I'm honored. Thank you so much. It's an honor. Seriously. I love what you're doing. So
thank you. And then do you want to and I'll link all of this with your interview, but do you want to just let everyone know how they can connect with you?
Totally. So I'm Kelsey Chapman on Instagram, and kelseychapman.com, and then Radiant Co on Instagram, and radiantcollective.org. So, and you'll be seeing an interview with Natalia on the Radiant podcast soon. You can find that in iTunes, but it's also linked on Radiant Collective. So
yay, I'm excited.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for being with us. Have a beautiful day.
You too.
Bye.